There's money tied to the prison industrial complex. There's money tied to arrest. There's people who make money every time an arrest happens.
Justice conversations. We talking back and forth like it's just us in conversation. Let's start the conversation. It's just my observation. They run this nation with hatred like we not worth creation. Maybe we all in the matrix. I need some confirmation. You feel these streets getting hotter like it's summer vacation. Justice conversations.
Good day, good day. I am Attorney Thomas S. Robinson III, Executive Director of the Justice Center. Welcome to the Justice Center podcast, Justice Conversations. We're glad to have you here. Again, I'm joined by the wonderful Ash Washington, and we're talking about something serious today. We're talking about youth violence, gun violence, and we're focusing on this video that went viral not long ago involving a mother in Chicago who was actually jumped by elementary school age children. Amazing. What do you think of that, Ash?
Yeah, so in case you haven't heard about the story or haven't had a chance to follow up on it, there was a mother and a son around the age of 9, and they were both attacked outside of the Orville Bright Elementary School in Chicago, Illinois. They were attacked by a group of elementary school children, and honestly, just as a mother, I'm a mother of 3. My kids are car riders now, but they at one time were bus riders. And I think that when I see these type of stories in the eyes of a parent who physically takes their kid to school or have kids that go to school every day and maybe not even in the best areas or neighborhoods or whatnot, but just hoping that they come home safely and hoping that they're not, being antagonized or taunted every day while they're at school and trying to learn and things of that nature. So I think that the topic, it could definitely hit both of us in a different way, but definitely hits deeply for sure for me.
Yeah, for me, obviously as an attorney, one thing that stands out is literally each of these children, babies, could find themselves charged with, at a minimum, assault. And then while they're likely to get a slap on the wrist this time, they're in the system. They may even be put on some sort of juvenile probation. And once in the system, the likelihood of staying in the system or coming back through the system increases dramatically. And we don't even realize that it's this small incident that places them there. And I've always been trying to figure out what's really at the root of this. What are we dealing with?
Yeah. A question for me that arose as you were just saying that. I have a question for you just out of curiosity. Is there a time where hypothetically a child could commit a crime and then the parent could be liable?
There are a lot of jurisdictions, I think New Jersey is the latest, who are looking to implement that policy where in this type of situation, the parents would be liable for on a misdemeanor level.
Yeah.
It's getting a little pushback to it, but it seems like there's a possibility of that that's where it may go.
So that transitions me into the next stage or topic of this particular incident. Does it start at home? Would the parents be the blame of the way that their kids act when they're not with their parents? Or is that something that you can't control? Even if you're the best parent, you're raising your kids right, you're teaching them all the proper things that you think, because remember, there's really not a blueprint. To me, I don't think there's a blueprint outside of the Bible that teaches you how to raise a kid. And that's if you are a spiritual religious person and you choose to utilize that as a tool that can help you through life. But if not, there's really not a blueprint to tell you how to be a parent. So how do you know, one, that you're teaching your kids the right things and preparing them to be the best person when they leave your home? And then 2, is it the parent that you blame if you're trying to do all the right things, at least you think you are, and then your kids still go out and they act like that?
I think 2 things can be true at one time. I think that probably there are some kids there whose parents tried to do everything that they could do to make sure they would not participate in this madness, this type of madness, but yet they're children, and they follow the
Crowd.
Yeah. And then I think that there is an issue as to the parenting of some of the children that were doing this. The first thing that stood out for me was, where are the parents? Right? You have this one parent who is walking her daughter to school, wherever they're coming from, but there's one. And honestly, I have to say, where are the men? Because as a man, I don't know how I could tolerate a child disrespecting an adult in that fashion,
Mm-hmm.
and I would shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
But there were no men, there were no parents,
There were no school attendants or
personnel.
grown-ups available, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there were no personnel, there were no adults other than this lady.
Mhm.
And so I do think at a fundamental level, where is the parent, particularly where is the father whose job traditionally is to establish order?
I was just thinking that it's to create some type of a order within their household and within their family. I definitely agree with that. But also, just to be optimistic in this particular incident, my mind goes to the point of it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon because you're picking up your kids from school. A lot of people work. A lot of parents are at work. Maybe these kids were supposed to be on the bus. Maybe they were bus riders. Maybe they were walkers.
Mhm.
Maybe, their regular schedule is not to have a parent pick them up. So to say they go to a different, maybe aftercare program or they take the bus home or something of that nature. And just this particular day, they weren't doing that. So then that takes me back again to that same question. Can we blame the parents? Like if you're at work, your kid is at school where they're supposed to be, you're thinking and hoping that they're doing the right things when they're not around you, but you're at work. You're doing what, you have to do to provide for them. The dad probably too, if you're a working father providing for your family. So it's like, where do we what is the answer? You have working parents that are not available as much as they probably would like to be emotionally, mentally, time-wise, all of those things. That could be a lack of within the child's life of maybe a reason that they're even acting out. Because remember, when kids act out in certain levels, especially at this extent, it's a behavior that's exhibiting some type of a communication.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that I'm not loved and you are because your mom picking you up from school. My parent never picked me up from school before. And maybe that's some type of a jealousy or something of that nature, but not just kind of fishing. My next question would be pertaining to that is, what do you think, as from a legal standpoint, what do you think the schools should do in this type of a situation with these type of incidents, highlighting the school's name that's giving your school a bad name, reputation? How should the school handle this type of stuff?
I think that first of all, again, it goes back to the question, why isn't anyone around? And if it is a situation in which it's possible for school personnel
Mm-hmm.
to have been involved in some way in this situation, if they're walking home from school, maybe that's not possible, but just some level of involvement.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope that the school then followed up
Yeah.
and held some sort of meeting where they talked about this. When I look at it from a legal standpoint, I don't really hone in completely on the school. Where I look at is, I'm a criminal defense attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that there's a problem with our children and not functioning well in school.
Mm-hmm.
It's behavioral.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it may be discriminatory towards children of color, but it is behavioral at the very least. And if this type of behavior is normative at this age, then when they are 16, the type of behavior that will be normative for them is the type of behavior that's going to land them in my lap. I don't want them to be in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's almost making things normative.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fighter, never been a fighter, don't really appreciate the value of a good fight unless it's professionally and Muhammad Ali or something like that. But you have people videotaping fights.
Mm-hmm.
Fights. In this situation, other children were videotaping the fight. You have people, from what I've seen on social media, who are promoting the fighting of kids.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that at the root of what the problem is that somehow normative.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow it's cool, it's attractive, it's an okay thing to do to sit there and watch people have fights.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing this over and over and over. You actually see it in the context of adults who will videotape someone getting beat down.
Adults that will videotape their kids fighting. Yeah. Or
And-
encourage their kids to fight.
Yeah, I think there has to be something that is in that we tolerate early on,
Mm-hmm.
like in this situation. And then by the time that child becomes a teenager, the behavior becomes even more destructive, but it's normative at that point. And when it becomes destructive in that way, then they get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get arrested, they enter a whole new world in which they're at the mercy of the criminal justice system.
Mm-hmm.
And give my child a chance, give my child a chance. It's not going to work that often.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. My mind went to a lot of different angles as you started to talk about that. The first thing that I thought about in the beginning when you were speaking was I have a 9-year-old boy, and already at 9 years old, he's telling me I don't like school.
Mm-hmm.
At 9, he's like, ugh, do I gotta go? I don't want to go to school today. I don't like it. It's boring. I'm blah, 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 those type of things, right? And so I'm like encouraging, like, no, you have to go to school. Just like I have to go to work. You have to go to school. This is your responsibility and your duty as a kid. This is what you have to do, right? But in my mind, I'm like, wow, when I was 9, I was excited about school. I liked school. I liked going, making friends, and just all the different things. And so it makes me wonder if maybe the schools are not implementing or staying up to date with the things that keep our kids interested.
Absolutely. Now, when I was 9, I hated school and pretty much hated it throughout school.
Yeah.
But
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, though.
Like, are the schools still outdated with the curriculum and the things that they are expecting the kids to be interested in, and they're carrying that in, and it's like, this is just what we do, this is how the school is, but instead of updating it to modern time, instead of now you have AI classes, or now you have more tech related classes where they can, play games or be a gamer and stuff that these kids are interested in. They're not interested in the same things that we were interested in. They don't like carrying around fake babies. And we had to do that in health class and stuff. They don't like those type of things. So it's like, how do you modernize the curriculum, so to say, to make it to where these kids are interested and they want to learn?
I do think that's an element. So my journey has been this: criminal justice attorney, have the client who's coming to me. I realize that part of the reason that I'm in this position and having this person in front of me is because they're not graduating from school.
Mm-hmm.
So I investigate and I find out that there's a thing called the school to prison pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
in which kids are being expelled for behavior. That expulsion process then results in them being in the streets, which is even worse. And then they end up being in my office signing up as a client. So why are they being expelled? I do think part of the reason is that the school system isn't engaging
I agree.
the students. And in my day, if I wasn't engaged, and I know there are plenty of times that I was engaged, I was doodling, I was trying to talk to a girl, and it's probably the same thing that's going on now. But the problem is that if there becomes this situation in which the student is labeled as bad,
Mm-hmm.
there seems to be an intolerance for them, and that's the bad apple, let's spit the bad apple out. Spit the bad apple out, and therein lies the problem. The bad apple probably, one, does have some issues, maybe traumatic issues, maybe absence of a father, maybe a lot of things, but also you go to school and it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's horribly boring.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're doing behaviors that you're really not supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that question, that query about school engagement is fundamental to student behavior and ultimately, from a legal standpoint, why kids are being kicked out of school so frequently. Another thing that I got from this video is that we are putting together right now
Mm-hmm.
a showcase
Mhm.
of young artists that will compete for prizes in a talent show. And as we began this process, we had to have a conversation
About safety.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And not safety on the same level that you have with older adults, but safety in terms of the children,
Mm-hmm.
the youth being a greater risk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I talked with someone, he had an opposing view. He didn't see that the children are perceived as dangerous.
Depends though, because when you put that age gap on there of, say, like 11 to 25, it kind of transitions you into the ones that are a little bit. Maybe not the ones that are like, say, maybe what, 14 and under? Because at this age, I mean, at this day now, you got kids that are 15, 16, 17 that are getting into mad trouble, potentially playing with guns and things of that nature or whatever. And even sometimes in that age group, more than like your 20s and up type, you know? So I think it just kind of depends on the age. It also depends on, and I hate to say this, but it does, it depends on the area,
Okay.
you know, the area that they're coming from. So like, one of the things that came to my mind when we were in the earlier topic was about the parents that teach their kids to fight, but don't teach them when to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So you raise your kid, right? This is from youth and up. Like, you don't let nobody do nothing to you. If they hit you, you hit them back.
Yep.
If they say something to you, you say it back. If they do that, you do this. And you're already instilling in your kid to basically be a bully. Like, to not take no ish, as they say, but then that becomes like a strong arm. It's like, I'm walking around here with my chest out now because you better not, because my mama said, because my daddy said, and if you do it, all right. Yeah. And then this, like you said, I never respected fighting or value fighting or whatever. Some people just don't know how to fight and won't take that. And their pride can get hurt so bad to the point where, oh, you beat me up and you thought you got one. Now I'm going to go back and get my mom or my dad's gun because I know where it's at. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to take care of it.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset that these kids have. Now let's fast forward and listen hard, because we love hip hop.
Yeah.
And I hate to bring hip hop into this.
Okay.
But let's ask this question.
What's the question?
Is it the music? Is it the television? Is it the things that they are seeing that we know as adults are entertainment, and they're put there for our entertainment because they are turning real life situations or narratives into a story that we can watch, and as adults we can relate to and understand that you can understand that Law and Order is just a mimic of what real life law is like, but it might be similar, but it's not what that is. Kids don't understand that when it comes to 21 Savage or the Future or all these people that are rapping what they rap. They believe that whatever they're saying, that is what they're doing, and that's what they had to do to be the person that they are and to get credit to be this person.
Man, I think it's one of the areas we got to deal with. We got to talk about the music thing. I've been thinking about it for the longest. I got into hip hop early, 1979, 1980. I've seen the progression of hip hop. It certainly was not advocating violence in its early days. And then it slowly evolved and it hit that period where violence became central to it. And from what I've heard, I may not be as in tune now as others, but from what I've heard, it's gotten a lot worse. Isn't it a thing called drill music? Yeah.
Trap.
Yeah. Somebody told me that drill music is literally just kill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's there, then we've got to discuss it.
Chill on a nice beat.
Yeah. Now, then the question becomes, one, is this a reality for the artists? You know what I mean? Is it the life that they led? And if it's the life that they led, then it's a reality. And I don't know if we can blame the music. Let the music be what it's going to be. I mean, I listened to, who would I listen to when I was younger? Nobody of this danger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But by the time I was an adult, I was able to separate the two. Maybe children aren't able to separate the two.
I feel like it's unfair to the artists. I feel like as an artist, if this was my way to vent, if I was an artist and this was my outlet, this was the only way. I don't have nobody. I don't have you. I don't have friends. I don't have anybody that I can get this stuff off my chest or talk about the things that shaped me or the struggles that I went through, or I saw my father get killed, or all of these things that's sitting inside of me. And I have no other way but to write this. And I'm talented and I can put this stuff on a beat. And it's a therapy for me. It's a way for me to not have to sit in this. It's a way for me to share my story and show people that I came from this. I've seen this. I've been through this, but this is where I am now. I think that it's unfair that the artist can't use that space as a safe space for them to tell their story and to relay a message, so to say, of like, I came from this, but I'm now here and I made it through, and you can too. But then there's also that thin line of like the consumer, and if you go religious with it, what path are you leading people down?
Yeah, I got you. And I used to think, hip hop is destroying our community. But then the more I thought of it, I started to realize that, anyone who knows Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, right? These are original bebop jazz artists.
Mm-hmm.
When they were doing their thing, they were looked upon in this way. Oh, what you're doing is horrible. It's corrupt. It's going to destroy our community. And you go look back at it, and there's really nothing that was that destructive about it. Remember rock and roll? You know,
I
remember
say that all the time. Rock and roll, they send messages that people would never imagine, demonic and all type of stuff, but people don't listen to it because it's like it's the sound of it is so loud and whatever, you know.
Remember Ray Charles? They said Ray
Mhm.
Charles was destroying our community.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like every time we kind of advance, we blame sort of the music, the new music, as destructive, and particularly the music that children like, as somehow being destructive. And the question is the music destructive, or is our culture destructive? And I think there's a little part of it where our culture is destructive. There's a Public Enemy song that I listen to in the few days that I work out of a week. And it says, have you forgotten that when you were brought here, we were robbed of our names. We were robbed of our language. We lost our religion. We lost our culture. We lost our God. And some of us, the way we act, we even lost our mind. And so it seems like there's a losing of the mind when you look at these babies that are doing what they're doing, the soil from which they're coming, and when you see the younger adults doing what they're doing. But I want to pivot for a second. No, can I pivot?
Yeah, pivot.
All right, cool. So one of the problems, in addition, with the school to prison pipeline is that the way the youth of color, and particularly the Black male youth, are viewed, right?
I agree.
And they're viewed as more mature and more dangerous than they really are. And because they are viewed that way, they set up this persona that fulfills that. And because they are viewed that way, I believe that we're not reaching them. And I'm driving in the car this morning. I'm thinking about this stereotypical racist situation. What's the stereotypical racist situation? Black male walking down the street, white lady there, coming the other direction. She grabs her pocketbook. Why? Because she's scared. And maybe she should be scared, right? Maybe you can't blame her for being scared. But it is that fear of, particularly in my view, young Black men, that contributes to the way they're perceived, the way they behave, the way that they're treated in school, and why they're expelled. And I wonder if the fear of our young youth is stopping us from really engaging with them in a real way, where we could get to what some of their issues are. Issues like, in my opinion, a big issue is, why are you posting guns on Instagram?
That's a big one.
Why are you posting?
Why are you posting anything incriminating anywhere?
Yeah.
Anywhere. And not that you should be doing anything incriminating, but in the same token, why incriminate yourself while doing it? You know, these kids, I believe that when social media, they came up with social media. Like I don't think that they felt, okay, I'm gonna give you an example. How AI is right now. People can't really be sued for duplicating people's voices. I can go on AI and make a whole Drake song right now.
Yeah.
And put it out, and I wouldn't get penalized for it because they don't have any laws or anything in place for that right now because it's so new.
Okay.
I feel like at a point or at a time when social media came out, there was a time that they couldn't use certain things that were on social media or whatever against people, or maybe they just didn't, not that they couldn't, but they didn't.
Okay.
And now we're at a place where they realize, oh, this adds value to my case. Oh, this shows or proves what I'm trying to, the story that I'm trying to tell, essentially, to my jury or whatever. And so they started to pull from this information and started to use it more in different cases. And then it was successful. And so now other people do it. And here we are. I think that kids just thought that social media was exempt and that they could do anything that they wanted to do there and they wouldn't be touched. Is what I think, you know.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
I would like to know, so going back to the video of the young lady and her child who was jumped out there in Chicago, I want to know what happens when kids grow up without boundaries. So we talked a lot about like two-parent households or kids that may be struggling with trauma and different things of that nature? What about when they grow up without boundaries, or when they're unsupervised all the time and it becomes a new normal? Or what happens when, they're not in a stable place in their life or in their home, and then they exhibit those type of behaviors outside of the home because they feel the lack thereof there. How do we help in those situations? How do we help those kids that are kind of sort of the ones that need the help the most? But how do you even know? Because a lot of them don't even tell you. So,
Well, from my perspective, one of the things that happens is, sadly, they're on probation in X county. They catch a case in Y county. They get out on bond and catch a case in Z county.
mm,
And because something hasn't happened in terms of boundary and discipline all along that path, they have an expectation that, and maybe it's just a hope that's natural, but they have kind of an expectation that county Z, Y, and W are going to give them probation.
yeah.
And and
How it
and
goes.
and, and that's a big part of why I'm sitting here, is because that reality is going to end at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to end in prison.
Yeah.
And when it ends in prison, I don't think it's fair to say, oh, the white racist judge is the reason that he's in prison. No, it's County Z, County Y, and County W. And sadly, I think one of the problems with the criminal justice system is that an individual gets from County W to County Z. But then that's a hard thing, because County W is like, okay, well, let's give them an opportunity. Let's see what they're going to do. And then they
Try to give them another shot.
give them another shot. And maybe County X is, oh, man, it was just misdemeanor weed, so let's give them another shot. And then you get to County Z, and it's all over and it's crushed. So that's what I see. What happens when there aren't boundaries, when there isn't discipline, when the norm of what's acceptable is not enforced.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it seems like the norm isn't enforced because we don't want to let them down. We don't want to be harsh with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I didn't have a
to
father.
call it unconditional love.
Yeah, I didn't have a father. Well, I had a father. My father and my mother weren't together.
Mm-hmm.
My father was very, very strict.
Mm-hmm.
If I were with him, he would probably shut me down.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the reasons that I didn't want to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had a choice in my young life. Do I want to go down the destructive path or not? And I went down the destructive path. And when I went down the destructive path, my mom sent me with my dad.
Mm.
When I went to my dad said, I'm shutting you down. And I said, I don't want to be shut down, so I'm going back with mom. That was enough for me to say, okay, I'm going to change my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But that may not be
enough for everyone.
Yeah, enough for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's real difficult. But one of the reasons, again, that I'm sitting here, one of the reasons why we're doing Justice Conversations is because there are individuals and there are groups and organizations that are trying to tackle all of this or some of this, particularly in my view, with the school to prison pipeline, getting back sort of to these young kids.
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep them engaged? How do we discipline them?
Mm-hmm.
How do we accommodate the bad soil that they're coming from? Because some of them are coming from bad soil. And so I want to highlight those individuals and those organizations that are like really doing it. And we got some here in Atlanta. You got a lot of them nationwide.
I agree. And then on the other aspect of it, right? So I've dealt with like bullying recently.
Mhm.
My daughter she was a new student at a new school, and the craziest thing was she was being bullied by her neighbor.
Okay.
So the neighbor wouldn't do anything to her when we were at the apartments or when both parents were home and stuff like that. But as soon as they get on their bus and as soon as they get to school, she would start taunting her. And it was like every day this went on for 2 weeks, like throwing food at her, throwing water in her face, pulling her hair, having other girls jump on her at lunch. They threatened to jump her a couple of times. And so her friend parent and myself, we got together and tried to set up a mediation at the school with the principal, the counselor, the other girls that were involved, and our kids. The first step was we wanted to sit them down for a mediation and find out what is the problem. Do you know the school wouldn't do it?
No?
They didn't want to have a mediation. They wanted to keep them separate.
You know, it's funny because w- with the whole school to prison pipeline thing, some people say that the answer is what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Is what's called restorative justice, where you sit everybody down, you kind of talk through it, you work through it, you don't punish the kid, you don't expel the kid, you don't send the kid to juvie, but you do what you. So it's surprising that
They didn't want to do it.
that it,
Let me give you a flip side. So I had a similar incident a couple of several months before this, where my daughter was experiencing the same thing at our church.
okay.
She had some church kids that didn't like her because one of the boys at the church was interested in her and one of the girls liked the boy. And so the whole group started targeting her because, again, we were new to the church and they started taunting her and doing stuff to her. I stopped coming. That's just me. My reaction is to pull my kids away and we just don't go back. I don't need it. So I stopped going. The pastor's wife called and asked me why I hadn't been to church. And so I explained what had been going on. The pastor's wife took it upon herself to set up a mediation at the church. We sat down with the other parents, with the young ladies, and they had a water bottle. And they passed the water bottle around. If you didn't have the water bottle, you could not speak. Okay. And so each kid got a chance to speak when they got the water bottle and say why they felt this was going on or whatever role they played, why they did what they did. And by the end of that mediation, they were all friends. They were all hugging. They were all inviting each other to parties, and they're still friends to this day.
So just in thinking about it, I wonder whether when it comes to this video, right, which is horrible.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It is horrible.
Is maybe we need to step back and we need to say that kids can be horrible sometimes, right? And we've all been kids and we've all seen some degree of kids being horrible. And maybe the true answer is that the school should do what you just described. Sit everybody down and say, yo, your behavior was way out of line. I don't know what would make the kid jump an adult. That's what's even more scary about it.
So that's what I wanted to say. I was waiting to see you finish, but what I was going to say was I just wanted to make a point that I feel like these new generation children, the lack of respect that they have for not only adults, but elders. Like my neighbor, she's like 40 something. And she was telling me how she was outside the other day and little kids like under 9, they call her a B word. They was like, B, go back in the house. And I was like, no. And she's like, yes. So it's like, that is just crazy to me that these kids are that young. And not only that they're using the language that they're using, but they know how to use it. That's crazy. But they don't care. They have no respect. They don't care that you're an adult. They don't move out the way. They don't have that same respect that we had, where we would at least move for the elders. Even if we was doing something wrong, we get out their way, let them walk past respectfully, things like that. They don't have that. And it's like, where did that end? And it kind of reverts me back to, is it not that the parents are not teaching them that? Is it that, those type of things? Like, we were taught when you walk into a room, if there's a room full of people, you speak first because you came into that room. These kids don't even speak at all. They'll walk in, look at you, and keep going. And it's like, why is everybody so rude and nasty and, those type of things? So I don't know as far as if that plays a role in where we're at with this particular situation of this young lady and her son. But I think that it could have something to do with that. So back to what you were saying earlier, before I throw it back to you, we talked about how it becomes a cycle. So hypothetically, a kid gets suspended in the 4th grade. They're labeled dangerous in the 5th grade. They get arrested in the 6th grade. So it's not a coincidence. It becomes, what you said, a pipeline. So once they initialize those labels and put them in this particular category, it's like they have no more support. They have no more legs to fall back on. They don't have anybody at this point because everybody thinks that they're a lost cause. So maybe we need a group for that. Maybe we need somebody that can step in, and what y'all call bad apples or lost causes, they literally take that and help to bring them back to life, blossom them.
I think and I don't fail to acknowledge the our brown brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fail to acknowledge our black sisters. But I think that the black man in America has been invisible and dangerous and cast off from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that now it's just happening again. It's continually happened, but I think now it's happening with a generation of youth who have grown more FU in terms of their attitude. And as they grow more FU, we hands off with them and we look at them as dangerous and invisible and so forth. And we don't see their humanity in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge problem. I think that the answer is not stepping away from them.
Yeah, I agree.
The answer is coming closer to them. The problem is they got guns and folks are scared of them.
That is true.
So ain't nobody trying to hug them because they got a gun. But, it's almost as if we're fueling it by saying, okay, well, we're going to leave them alone. They're bad apples. They're dangerous. And we're going to clutch our purses and keep walking.
Yeah, I don't like it. Especially being a mother of black men, being a mother of 2 young black men, and even being a parent that has had to deal with what they call the justice system and all that type of stuff. And I am not what you said earlier. I'm not a parent who thinks that it's the judge's fault or any of those things. I actually question, some of the practices maybe that I had as a parent when my son was younger, and I replay some of the situations in my head of situations that, that could have been red flags even as a kid that I probably never really paid attention to or just thought like, oh, he's just a baby or he's just a kid or whatever. And how it could have maybe been rectified earlier of ultimately what I feel landed my son where he is just not making good choices, not making the right decisions. A lot of kids make impulsive decisions in the moment, and that lands them. I read a post the other day. The guy said, I robbed the store. He said, I'm doing 20 years. He broke it down. He said, it took me 30 seconds to get myself 30 years in jail. And then he broke it down. He said, 10 seconds, I pulled up and I saw somebody that I wanted to rob. 10 seconds, I made the decision in my mind to get out the car and to do an armed robbery. 10 seconds, I made the decision to shoot the person. Boom, 30 years in jail. So he talked about how 30 seconds of his life just not making the right decision put him 30 years in prison, and now that's his life. Yeah. And it's sad, and it's very I feel like it's a hamster wheel, and it's like at some point if somebody just doesn't get in there and just pull that hamster out and start this process of trying to stop the cycle, it'll continue forever and get worse and worse and worse. So I commend you for being somebody that took a step to at least draw awareness, at least sit down and have the conversation, to at least be a person who cares enough to try to dissect this and break it down and see where is the disconnect? What could we do as a people, as a village, as a communities to make things better for our children, for where we live, and for our future, because that's what they are. They're the future. And a lot of them are in prison.
Well, I mean, they were saying the children are our future when I was growing up, and I actually believe that. And I hit a stretch where I was like, that seems like that's bull. Like we just talking mess about our children, our future. Maybe they are our future, but we're horrible custodians of our future. That maybe the problem isn't that our children aren't our future. Maybe the problem is that we really don't believe that because we're not.
And we're not equipping them to be the future.
I mean, how many generations need to go forward before the same problems that have been confronting our people since Nat Turner, if anyone knows Nat Turner, but since back then, how many generations got to go by with our children being the future? And maybe it's time for us to talk with our children and utilize this moment in time, this is an incredible moment in time. We are at the very beginning of AI. Right?
We are
at the very beginning of AI, and it's going to transform everything. So now that we enter in this landscape, why don't we make some sort of committed effort in some way to say no more? Next generation is not going to be a generation that doesn't love themselves,
Mhm.
because that's been part of our problem as a people,
Yeah.
that doesn't love themselves, that doesn't have a village that loves them.
Mhm.
We're going to solve this within the next generation or two. I think it's possible. I really do. I
Mhm.
still hold that hope. I
I
still hold
think
that hope.
that you, Mr. Thomas Robinson, are onto something, and you could possibly have a mini justice conversations
With the little
with
kids.
the little ones, and we can dissect their brains and figure this out. What is going on? What are you guys scared of? What is the reason that you think that you need to have a gun under the age of 25 legally? Like, why? What is it? And then maybe they can give us some insight and maybe even present some perspectives to us that we would have never known, because we're not in school and we don't deal with the things that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. But what is it? And maybe that's a area that could give them an outlet to speak their mind and to feel like they're being heard, but then also give the adults a way to understand them a lot better. I heard a girl on the radio the other day, a lady, excuse me, on the radio the other day, and they were talking about kids and doing the wrong things and stuff. And she said, I don't even bother no more. I put my kids in the hands of the Lord. She said, because they don't listen. And when you say something to them and you try to correct them and you try to, be the parent and do whatever, she said, they cuss you out. They bad. They mean to you. They, shun you. They do all these disrespectful things. She said, I lay them at the Lord's feet.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we can't do that though. Like,
I agree. I think that
you
in a
know.
fundamental level, if we acknowledge the Lord, right? That's the first question we got to ask ourselves. But if we acknowledge the Lord, then we do got to understand that there is a certain power in saying, Lord, help us, and leaving it there. But I've looked at sort of history and life, and it seems like the Lord wants us to take steps.
Yeah, of course. Meet him halfway, as he says.
Yeah. And so once again, leave them alone
It's not the answer.
cannot be the answer.
Mm.
It cannot be the answer. The things that you were talking about, I think, are important. And there are folks out there. Today, I was in court on a Zoom call. I was listening to a man. His name is Gary Davis
Mhm.
with the Next Level Boys Academy.
Mhm. Shout out to Gary Davis.
Shout out to Gary Davis. Gary Davis, you got to come talk to us about
Love
this,
Gary
man,
Davis.
because you were in court and you were breaking down the situation. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is where we need to be. And we need more of that. We need more Gary Davis.
I'm glad that you brought him up, because I do want to give him a little bit of credit, well, a lot of credit for a lot of different things. But in this particular aspect is Gary Davis understands that it starts with the parent. And one thing that I will commend Gary Davis for, from all of the meetings and sessions and stuff that I have been to with him and sat in on, and I am now a part of his new mom session where, they prep the moms that have sons that are incarcerated that may be potentially going to prison, right? He talks to us about being accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't do. They woo the parents. Oh my God, I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's going to be okay. God is going to da-da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is going to work out the way. Can't trust the process. And Gary said something the other day. He said, y'all keep hearing this trust the process-ish. What is the process? And he started to break down what the process was. He started to explain to the parents, to the moms, the emotions that we're feeling, the situations that we're dealing with, and how they're similar but they're different, and how we possibly got here and what we could do to rectify it. He understands that. And I really just appreciate his knowledge and him just being an advocate out here for what other people would call bad kids. He doesn't look at them as bad kids. He looks at them as young men that he has an opportunity to save, and does every single thing and applies every effort that he can to do so.
Wow. Yeah. So folks like that, to me, are the folks that need to be brought into this conversation.
Agreed.
About what's happening in our community that lands people in the justice system.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
In closing, we reflected on, this incident. Condolences to the young lady who was attacked, and I hope that, she's recovering well and doing better, and her son as well, mentally and physically. What would you like to leave our audience with today? We've covered a lot. We talked about a lot of different things and aspects. What would you like to leave them with?
Hope. I really do believe that. Remember, I talked about that guy who was like, our children are our future. Are you for real? Is that nonsense? Maybe we sometimes feel that way. I felt that way, but we can't feel that way. We've got to have hope, and we've got to engage and say we're going to fight. This is a war.
Yeah.
This is a war for me, to keep people out of the criminal justice system, but this is a war for our people because we went through slavery, we went through Jim Crow, we went through mass incarceration. Some would say we're still in mass incarceration. And there's going to be an aspect of this war that involves the evolution of our people
Yeah.
that we have to be hopeful for, but also soldiers.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that as a community, it's two parts to this. One, we need more opportunities that are positive, resourceful, and provide a way, a path for our people. More apprenticeships, more free state funded programs that will give people a certification or just something where they can have a skill, where they can go into this world and make it. And especially now with things being so expensive and all of that type of stuff, these regular $10, $12, $15 jobs are not cutting it anymore for people. We need those opportunities. We need, and especially for our people, we need more mental stability and more, I would say, hope that they can do these things and that it will land them the opportunity that they couldn't have gotten by going to school or whatever, and it didn't take that long to do it. You know what I mean? I think that's one thing. And so the second part to that is that y'all got to use these resources. When the state fights something that y'all may not know to get certain programs approved and to allocate or allot certain funds to certain programs that they think would be useful or helpful to certain communities and areas in our people, if y'all don't use it, they lose it. So if they don't use those funds and apply them to what they're doing, so hypothetically they have a class and they get like 50 grand to do this class, but they don't get enough people to enroll that covers that, they lose that funding. And so then the state is like, well, nobody even wanted to do the program or nobody really liked the program, so it wasn't successful, so we're going to take the money back and we'll put it into something else. But when y'all use it and y'all take advantage of the opportunities and the things that are out here that could advance you and elevate you to get to the next levels, then they get more funding to apply and put into our communities and give to our people. So that's just something I think you guys should think about as far as just researching apprenticeships and skills and trades and work source solutions and things of that nature, because that's where you get a lot of your free training and you're able to do something different and even parents and kids and provide a different path for your kids. Kids change your ways and provide a different path for yourself and make your family happy.
Yeah.
So we're going to be closing. I really appreciate you for just this topic in general is amazing, but also just for the Justice Conversations platform and safe space of being able to talk about these different things. What's next for us?
Join us. Join the conversation. Join us on our social media. Join us by making comments.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Call us. Give your thoughts. Tell us who we need to talk to. But join the conversation. It's an important conversation. I'm glad we're having it. Until next time, be peace.
Justice conversations. We talking back and forth like it's just us in conversation. Let's start the conversation. It's just my observation. They run this nation with hatred like we not worth creation. Maybe we all in the matrix. I need some confirmation. You feel these streets getting hotter like it's summer vacation. Justice conversations.